Hello, I'm Devery Anderson, author of the book Emmett Till, The Murder That Shocked the World and Propelled the Civil Rights Movement. Now, in 2017, historian Timothy Tyson dropped a bombshell. In his best-selling book, The Blood of Emmett Till, he claimed that Carolyn Bryant admitted she lied when she testified that Emmett Till grabbed her around the waist and uttered obscenities. Now, this revelation made international headlines, and for good reason, and calls rose for the prosecution of Bryant. The book shot onto the New York Times bestseller list and was the recipient of awards. Now, the news caused major buzz within the Emmett Till scholarly community and researchers such as myself, and had no reason to disbelieve it. I certainly believed it. But over time, questions arose that seriously challenged Tyson's claims. Investigative journalist Jerry Mitchell researched those claims extensively, and in this video, I'll be talking about that, and this video needs to be shared by everyone, everywhere, so that we can dispel the latest batch of myths around the Till case. But before we go on, we need to clarify something crucial. Evidence clearly shows that Carolyn lied on the witness stand about Emmett cornering her, grabbing her by the waist, and using obscenities. That testimony clearly contradicts her statement to her attorney 20 days earlier, and we talked about that in the first video. So keep that in mind during the rest of this video. Evidence shows she did lie, but, and this is important, did she recant that testimony to Tyson? Mitchell's investigation suggests that she didn't. Now here's what Mitchell uncovered. Tyson recorded his interviews with Carolyn, but when federal agents examined the tapes, the supposed confession wasn't there. The FBI found that Tyson provided contradictory explanations, first saying his recorder wasn't working, then that the recording was lost, then that he didn't realize until later he didn't have it on tape. Now, the timeline problems are also problematic. Tyson claims that the confession didn't happen until July 2008, but his emails show that he hadn't even met Carolyn, even by August 2008. And when Mitchell asked him to explain this timeline, he didn't respond. Now, the key witness against Tyson's story is Marcia Bryant, Carolyn's daughter-in-law, who was present for both interviews. She told investigators she had never heard any confession and that Carolyn never recanted. Those were her words. But here's where it gets really damaging. Mitchell found emails between Marcia Bryant and Tyson that completely contradicted Tyson's later claims. After Tyson's book came out, Marcia emailed him asking why people were, quote, quoting you, saying that Carolyn lied, end quote. She wrote that these were, quote, distressing, end quote, especially since Tyson hadn't publicly refuted anything. Tyson responded that in his assessment, Carolyn didn't tell the truth in court and had admitted as much during their interview. But this directly contradicted what Tyson later told Mitchell, that Marcia's family took no exception to the facts in the book. That exchange clearly shows that they did. Now, even more damning, Mitchell found that Tyson had an unethical relationship with his source, Carolyn. Despite later calling it bullshit that he was asked to edit Carolyn's memoir, emails prove Tyson edited the book, apologized for being slow because, quote, editing is hard work, end quote, and he asked Marcia to list him as the editor. He even offered to help get the memoir published, telling Martha he thought, quote, some university press would be interested in it, end quote. And according to the FBI official Department of Justice report, Tyson's handwritten notes contained only brief fragments. That part wasn't true. 50 years ago, I just don't remember. Nothing that boy ever did could justify what happened to him. But in his published book, Tyson expanded these fragments into a full dramatic confession by adding words that weren't in his original documentation. So here's the crucial question. If Carolyn had dropped a bombshell like that and the recorder wasn't on, what historian in their right mind wouldn't ask her to repeat it when they turned the recorder back on? They would have had follow-up questions as well. I know I would have. It just doesn't make any sense. And this is exactly what I asked Tyson directly in an email. I sent him detailed questions that exposed the contradictions in his story. Why didn't he ask Carolyn to repeat the confession once he got the recorder working especially since he asked her to repeat other, less significant details during the interview. That was one. Another question, why didn't he challenge her when during the interviews she said she was busy trying to defend herself during the store encounter? Defend herself against what? Here she indicates something physical was happening, which directly contradicts her supposed confession that nothing happened. Why did he claim in an unpublished paper that leaked online briefly, and which I have a copy of, that the defense attorneys coached Carolyn's story? He never included this second bombshell, and it was a bombshell, in his book. Did he have second thoughts about recording something that wasn't true? How did he explain his statement to Carolyn that he had no other purpose in helping her other than for the historical record? But then he ends up publishing a book of his own. He never told them he was doing this. How does he still deny editing Carolyn's memoir when the emails clearly show him apologizing for slow editorial work and asking to be listed as the editor? So these are questions I asked him. And despite the fact that we knew each other from previous correspondence, Tyson never responded to these questions. After a multi-year investigation, the FBI reached a devastating conclusion. In their official report closing the case in 2021, the Department of Justice stated Tyson's account lacks credibility, citing his shifting explanations, questionable nature of his relationship with Donham, and his financial motives. Mitchell also found that Tyson had credibility problems with his previous book, Blood Done Signed My Name, which contained factual errors, wrong dates, and questionable claims about conversations that may never have happened. When confronted with all of this evidence, Tyson defended himself, telling the New York Times, quote, "My reporting is rock solid," end quote. But the FBI had already reached its conclusion. There was no credible evidence that Carolyn Bryant Donham ever recanted her testimony. So the confession that made headlines around the world appears to have been a fabrication designed to sell books. Thanks to Jerry Mitchell's dogged investigation and the FBI's thorough review, we can safely echo these conclusions about Timothy Tyson's claims. Now, if you're interested in more on the case, I have copies of my book I can make available. If you're interested in receiving a signed, inscribed copy or have other questions for me about any of this, you can email me at deverysanderson.com, deverysanderson@gmail.com, sorry. And the next video will be talking about the kidnapping of Emmett Till and something we've learned recently about that kidnapping.